surround yourself with people who believe in you and who believe in what you believe. I think a lot of times we have these grand ideas and these great plans of what we want to do and what we want to achieve, and we never tell anybody. We just like hold it inside, and you're like, I don't know, I'm not ready for it, or I don't want everybody to know if I don't make it. It's really embarrassing. And it's like, well, maybe, but at the same time, I find that, and this is something I've learned fairly recently in the last few years, that people want to help you. Like, people want to help you, and they can't help you if they don't know what you want to do.
Hey, it's the Studio Sherpas podcast, episode 107. Welcome to this episode of the Studio Sherpas podcast, where our number one goal is to help you grow your video business. Hey there, friend. I am Ryan Coral, and I'm so happy that you're joining me today. Today's episode is all about how you can find success in this industry with some key decisions that you have to make. We talk with Emmy Award-winning Joyce Tsang, amazingly talented, very, very successful, and someone that is making a dent in the world in a positive way. You need to know her. I'm really, really excited for you guys to learn from Joyce, as I did during our interview. And I actually know Joyce from before the interview, so I have learned much from her. She is amazing. Before we get into the episode, though, I want to share something. I just got back with my team from filming a legacy story in Spokane, Washington. We were there for the week. We filmed a guy named Ray Edwards. This guy's story is amazing, and his outlook on life is incredibly inspiring. I didn't get through the interview without crying 3 times. It happened thrice. And I actually heard Ray speak at an event that I was at in Austin, which I've mentioned a number of times, and was moved to tears during that story too. So stinking inspiring. You can learn more about Ray at rayedwards.com. And if you're at all interested in improving your copywriting skills, he is the guy that can help you do it. And in the work that we're doing, as we were talking with the guys on the trip home, we're like, man, we obviously do video, but knowing and learning more about copywriting can really only help us as we're creating, marketing pieces and the kind of stuff that we need to be able to grow our business. So anyway, check out rayedwards.com. He's an incredible individual, and you'll love his copywriting stuff. So we are a couple of weeks into the new year, and it's time that we take a serious look at the things that we're committing to for the year and make sure that they aren't too crazy or unachievable, and to kind of check in and make sure that you're still wanting to do those things. I don't want you to get all upset at yourself 6 months from now, feeling like, I'm such a failure, or in 6 days from now. The things that you committed to, are they achievable? Because if they're not, then no reason to be upset. Do you have a step-by-step roadmap for how you're going to achieve this thing or these things? If the answer is no to either of those questions, then stop, undo, delete, or at least revise. Consider your goals, the resolutions, whatever, and make sure that you have a plan and that plan is achievable for being successful. For me, I'm finally hiring someone to help me with prospecting. I've been wanting to hire somebody, a salesperson, for years. I've been saying that for years. This is a rock that my team is helping me achieve. This quarter, it's happening, you guys. And I've got an actionable plan for how I'm getting there. And just so you know, my next step is that I have a meeting set with a couple of guys that are going to introduce me to someone that should be able to help me. If you're not familiar with prospecting, you should definitely take a listen to episode 99 with my friend Jimmy Hogewind. It's all about sales and prospecting. It was episode 99. Super helpful conversation. So I love introducing you guys to friends and mentors of mine like Jimmy, like Joyce. I'm so excited to get to meet Joyce Tsang today. So without further ado, let's do it. See what I did there? Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Studio Sherpas podcast, where we help you grow your video business. My name is Ryan Coral, and I'm your host. Today, we are with my friend Joyce Tsang from Only Today. Only Today is a production company based out of the cool city of Portland in the cool state of Oregon. While she's earned the opportunity to work with the likes of John Malkovich, Ron Howard, and Jane Goodall, she dedicates a portion of her time leading the team towards self-produced projects that speak to inequality, women empowerment, and other social good campaigns. I've known Joyce for a bunch of years, and it really is an honor to have a friend like you on the show today, someone who has a ton of accolades in the world of filmmaking, but also someone that has an enormous heart for people as well as storytelling. So welcome to the show, my friend Joyce.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to chat.
Excited to chat. Now, what you guys just missed was I said, all right, let's do this. I had this like beautifully clean glass of water I put on my desk, and then I just spilled the whole thing on thousands of dollars worth of stuff. And Joyce was waiting for the fire to start, but it didn't start. We're all good.
Yeah, I was waiting for that iMac to start smoking up right there on the screen. Great start. Good.
Solid. We are off to a great start. So I've had so many filmmakers on the show, and there are common themes in a lot of stories. Like a lot of us don't grow up dreaming or thinking about becoming a filmmaker or a director. For a lot of us, we fall into this work. If you would have asked me as a high school student, or I guess I started messing around with this stuff in like junior high, if I would have made a career in this business, I would have just laughed, right? Because I thought like, oh, you have to move to Hollywood, and it's like, it's just like, it just was not on my radar at all. I've always had a ton of respect for the industry, but it just seemed out of reach and not something that I was made for. Joyce, I would just love to start for you to talk about your journey, like, where you started and kind of where you're at today.
Yeah, so I had what I consider a very unconventional start to it all. I actually did grow up around Hollywood.
Oh,
I mean, I grew up in the suburbs of LA. So Hollywood was very much like in our area, so to speak. I mean, it's not super close, but we're right there. But that was never, like growing up, that was never a career option for me.
Yeah.
I grew up in an immigrant family, and that very conservative Asian, so to speak, and like being an artist just wasn't one of those things that were I don't want to say supported, because my parents have always been very supportive of me, but it just wasn't one of the things that kind of came to mind when you're going through college and high school and you're applying and thinking about what the heck am I going to do for the rest of my life. So went to school, became an engineer. Worked in R&D for a few years, which is very different from what I do now. Just like, I worked for a big Fortune 500 company. I was in the lab, creating crazy things. And I remember one day I was in there and I was just like, what am I doing? It wasn't what I went in with the passion for. Engineering just like wasn't there for me anymore. And I was like, and I looked around and I'm like, I don't think I want to do this for another 35 years. That's a long time.
Yeah. Right.
And it was a time in my life where just like lots of things were changing. I was getting married, and the DSLR revolution had come about, and all
those are the two biggest things that happened that year. I think you got married and the DSLR revolution.
Yeah, that was, and I think we kind of, I started dabbling in it a little bit before the 5D Mark II came out. We actually had, you probably remember these, like the Canon.
Oh yeah, the Brevis.
SHA, yeah, with the Brevis.
Oh my God.
You had the lens. By the time you're done, the thing's like a bazooka, right? Like you imagine like trying to shoot a wedding.
Enormous. Oh my gosh.
So we actually started kind of like in the Brevis stage, but we didn't really I didn't fully commit to it full time until the DSLRs came out, which was right around when we got married. And I remember at the time, Ray, my husband, who's also my partner in our business now, we had a conversation. It was, we're like, well, we think we should do this because, what's the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing that happen is that it doesn't work out and we go back to doing what we're doing anyway. So it's kind of like, well, let's just give it a go. And so he actually kind of dared me a little bit. He was kind of like, well, if you're not going to quit and kind of focus on what we want to try, then I'm going to quit and I'm going to do it.
Wow.
And I kind of had this moment like, oh crap. Cause like, if this doesn't work out and he quits first, then I'm never going to get to try full time. Right. So I was like, no, I'm, so I wrapped up like this huge project that we had at work. I went in, we had a big launch party and everything. And I literally went in after that, went to my manager's office, and I was like, you know what? This has been great. I learned a ton, but I'm out. And I distinctly remember like telling my mom, and she had this very, very like concerned look on her face. Like, you did what? You're going to go film weddings? Like, that's what you're going to do? But that's kind of like how we got into this whole filmmaking thing.
What did that, there are so many people that I talk to that, they have a full-time job that isn't filmmaking, but, they probably spend as much, if not more time, filmmaking. What did that feel like? Like, take me to that moment where you're talking to your boss, your manager, you just had this big launch, everybody's pumped that, you got this thing off the ground, and your heart is kind of in a different spot. What was that actually like, telling he or she that?
I cried. It was just like a very emotionally charged decision. This is 2008, 2009. This is like right at the recession, like the big crash and everything. And it was just like, if you think about it, you think about it from it's not the greatest move to like quit your job that has like a 401k and a pension and health insurance and all that. And you're like, I'm going to go be a freelancer and be an artist, but I just remember, sitting in my cubicle and just not being fulfilled with what I was doing. And it really was that moment, sitting at home and talking to Ray and saying like, this, like the worst thing that can happen is if I don't give this a try, like I will regret it for the rest of my life and I can't have that. And so there's a good chance this might not work out, but I'm okay with going back to being an engineer if that's what it ends up being. Luckily, things seem to have worked out okay. And here we are. But it was more the fear of it was less about the fear of like, well, this could fail and we could lose all our savings and, that's that. But it was more the fear of having that regret later on. And I didn't want that.
A lot of people, or no, what is it saying? Everybody dies, but not everybody lives, right? Bring some cliches in. No, but you say like it wasn't the greatest move or the smartest move, right? To leave this job, the security. But I just think that that's such a beautiful example for us to say like life isn't about like creating our own little kingdom and safety nets and like to really live, to fully live. It's to do the thing that you're made to do, right? And for you to wrestle through this, like, and have unrest in your job and just say like, this isn't like, yeah, it's good, it's nice, it's safe, especially right now, like, the economy's terrible, whatever. So to have this that's nice. But man, I feel like, and you're just a living example of like, well, that's not what life is all about, right? So I just kudos to you for taking the risk and having the guts to try something and do something, and hopefully that inspires that can inspire people that are sort of on that fence of like, wow, like I just like the security of having this. It's like, if you like that and then cool, like do it. But if you're torn, if you're just like, man, you'll never know, right? Unless you try it. And I think my encouragement is to do it. And you meet somebody like Joyce, it's like, oh my gosh, like, to hear her story, to see her success. And would you say that you think you're more fulfilled today than you would have been had you stayed as an engineer doing R&D and whatever else?
100%. 100%. And it's not that I didn't enjoy the engineering part of it. I mean, I was in R&D, so it was creative in a different way because I was kind of breaking new ground in science and whatever. But it was more the corporate environment and company politics and that kind of stuff that I wasn't totally into. But I mean, I can't ask for a better job, if you can even call it a job, of like what I do now.
Right.
I feel like this is all just gonna go away someday because it's just like a hack and like somebody
Yeah.
found out that I'm getting paid
I
to
feel
do
like
what
that
I want to do. It's
Yeah.
like at some point it's like, when is this gonna, I kind of live
Yeah.
on the edge thinking, when is this gonna, like, at some point is this just gonna end and all
Somebody's
gonna
going to
go
figure
away?
it out that it's
Right.
not, they shouldn't be paying us for this because this is like too much
Right.
fun.
Right. And I mean, it's kind of crazy because, we get, now I work with the team and we get to travel the world and tell these inspiring stories and I get paid for it.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's crazy. And it's not that that's everything. Like with
Right.
any business and anything that you do, there's risks and challenges. And, like there's just like a whole slew of things that come along with that. But I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
Like it's all worth it. All the hard work and the frustrations and the growth and all of that. It's just part of the journey.
Yeah. Well, tell me about what does your team look like today? What kind of projects are you guys working on?
So we are a small team of 6 to 7 full-time, and we work with anywhere from like 5 to 8 like freelancers on a regular basis to kind of, as things come in and out, we can flex and expand as needed. We do anything from doc to commercial to narrative stuff. Most of it in the doc realm. We do quite a bit of work for Facebook. So we do probably 40 to 50 films a year, I would say.
Wow.
That are in the 2 to 3 minute doc kind of range. And then, we'll do commercial stuff for Nike or Starbucks or something like that. And then, we'll do a handful of narrative pieces a year. So I really like the kind of the range of that. It keeps things fresh and keeps me on my toes. And it's fun.
I love that. You start as a wedding filmmaker, right? Was that the very kind of the first big thing that you shot was a wedding film?
Yep. Weddings it was easy. Like we were kind of in that age group when a lot of our friends were getting married. So, we started doing like from free weddings to like $500 weddings and just kind of like built that up. In about a year from when we started, we were doing like $10,000 weddings, which at the time I was like, this is crazy. Like, how do we get these people to like pay us this money and trust us with their wedding day? Like, this is insane.
Well, I think a lot of people that have never shot weddings, they look down on that industry. For you, today, to be shooting, I watch your work and it's incredible. You and Ray are just so stinking talented. But to see kind of where you came from, like, how do you feel? Like, when you explain to somebody like, well, yeah, that's kind of how I got my start. Like, are you embarrassed about it? Or do you feel like, no, this is really what helped me, be able to tell these kinds of stories today?
Yeah, I'm not at all embarrassed about that. Like, I get what you mean when you're like, some people can be embarrassed by it. And there's, I guess, a certain stigma that could be attached to wedding filmmaking. But I mean, that's where I started. And that's where I got a lot of my training in, being prepared for things that only happen once and having to do everything. Like, you are lighting and camera and audio and producer and director. Like, you are doing all of it. Yeah. And I think that is such a great teacher for even later on when you're transitioning to commercial work or narrative work. Like, you understand how to communicate with those different departments so much more because you, in some ways, and not at the same levels, but like in some ways have been through and have done all those things. And I think that's such a great teacher in learning the different parts of creating a film, but then also learning how to be a better communicator and being a better facilitator of helping the team do a better job at telling the story, whatever it is. And that, I'm not ashamed at all to say that that's where I started, and I used to be a wedding filmmaker.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. I just want people to hear that because I think early on when I was doing wedding films and then I started to get into corporate and commercial work, friends that were creative directors that were working at these agencies and stuff, they're like, hey, like, we really want to work with you, but you can't let my boss know that you shoot weddings. They can't. Don't tell me what your website is or anything, And so there was that stigma, and I've shared that before, where I would be so annoyed and be like, well, our wedding work is really good. And this is where I learned how to be able to help you guys over here, and that whole thing. So I hope that for the people that feel like, oh man, like there's so much, and for anybody who's never been a wedding filmmaker, like holy cow, consider it, because you do have to. You have to learn a lot faster, right? It's the curve is much different.
I feel like people get a lot of flack for being a wedding filmmaker. It's like, if you never shot one, it is damn hard to do a good job.
Yeah.
Like, it is not an easy thing to do. And,
it's easy to do a crappy job, right? Like Uncle Bob.
Sure. But I mean, like, shout out to all the wedding filmmakers out there who are like every week, just like, trying to do their best out there. And it's, it's not an easy job. So, like I said, like, just not ashamed or shy of telling people that's where my origins are.
I love that. Well, tell me about, like, what's one of your favorite projects that you recently, or maybe of all time, that you've been able to be a part of?
That is an incredibly hard question to answer.
On. You're only doing like 40 or 50 a year, so it's like,
right. Well, yeah, that's a tough question.
Any experiences stand out where you maybe got emotional, like you were on set or watching the finished piece or experiencing the piece with other people?
Yeah. We did. So we travel a lot internationally as part of, what we do. And we see a lot of different people, different cultures, different circumstances all around the world. And we were in, trying to think, Kenya, and doing a story about wildlife rangers and conservation. And, I feel like I thought I have a pretty good work ethic. I was like, I work really hard, I pull long hours, and we meet these wildlife rangers, and like, I have nothing on them. Like, they are out there in the crazy heat, just hiking the trails, trying to, make sure that rhinos and elephants are around for our kids to see. And, I talk to these people, and they don't do it for the money.
Yeah, right.
The money is not great. It's dangerous and all that. And, I see them, and they love what they do. And it's those type of stories that really fire me up and really kind of push us to, do what we want to do, which is to, offer new and different perspectives to all these stories that are out there in the world, just hoping that maybe one day we'll live in a world that's a little kinder to animals or to humans. And it's just, it's those types of stories that really are my favorite. And, I'm very lucky that we do a lot of those every year. And, that's one that really stands out to me in terms of being emotional or really having an impact on myself. And then kind of on the flip side of that, another one that stands out is this piece that I did with John Malkovich earlier this year. Really that cool. Is very, very different. Like, it's a full set with Hollywood talent and lights and people and actors and background and all that stuff. And it goes on TV, and it's a very polar experience from being in the middle of nowhere with no power, no running water, just camping in the middle of the Kenya, national park. But it's a whole different experience. Like, it's, being able to work with that caliber of talent and collaborating with 30 or 40 people on set to bring this thing together is a really humbling experience to be able to be a part of something like that. And I feel really fortunate. I feel really fortunate that, I get to experience these things and be able to work with my friends and be able to kind of share that together. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what, when I ask people to be on the podcast, they say, like, man, the caliber of you, Ryan, it's like, just kidding. they're like, man, I don't know. This is I'm going to write this in my journal one day. No, but I do love that in the work that we get to do, you get to experience, so many different things. And I feel like it's like I could have gotten a job, like you, I would not have ended up as an engineer, but I could have ended up in a cubicle or doing sales, whatever. But I would not have learned as much about people had I not had this job. And it's been really humbling, like you said. And it's like, it's harder to be judgmental of others doing this kind of work because, we've gotten to see people live in the worst circumstances, but that have high spirits and have joy. And then the opposite, you get to meet people on the total other end of the spectrum. And it's like, wow. And there's something to learn from everybody. And I just love that, that we get to be a part of that. It's really, really, really cool.
Yeah. I mean, in every shoot that I go on, I learn something. Like there's no shoot. Well, first of all, there's no shoot that goes according to plan. So there's that.
Right, yeah.
You always learn something from whatever goes wrong. But then there, everybody I meet, like whether, it's just learning to have a good attitude from one of the best PAs that I've ever had to learning that, early is on time and on time is late, from somebody who's just, always there 30 minutes before we need to be, and has really these things that don't have a ton to do with filmmaking, but there's always something that I take away from meeting new people and collaborating with new people. And I find that to be one of the most rewarding things about what we do. That, and, of course, like hearing and being able to tell these stories that we tell, but it's really, learning from people and developing and nurturing these relationships are just, it's incredible that, again, like that's what I get to do.
Yeah. Right.
That still blows my mind.
Yeah. So there's a lot of us out here that people listen to the show because they want to grow in their business. We all want to be better storytellers, better filmmakers. How do you encourage people to grow as a filmmaker? Like what are some things that you think about or that you do, or when people come to you and just say like, Joyce, I want to do this and I want to do it better. Like, how do you encourage them, or what do you recommend?
Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Like that is something that it's hard to do. And it's a thing that I have to remind myself every day that should be something to keep in mind, because, like if I had waited until I was ready, whatever that means, to do what I do, to make the jump from being an engineer to a filmmaker, or to direct a narrative short, or to DP a big piece for so-and-so, it's like if you wait till you're ready, you'll be on the sidelines for the rest of your life. Like there's no such things as you're ready. Sure, you could be more ready or not, but like just get out there and do it. You're going to mess up, you're going to fail, it's going to continue to happen, but that's how we learn and that's how we grow and that's how we stretch. And I think that is one of the things that I've learned is that, ready or not, make the effort to set a goal and reach for it. And, you may not get it on the first try, but that shouldn't stop you from at least thinking about the direction that you want to go and going for it. The other big one is, surround yourself with people who believe in you and who believe in what you believe. I think a lot of times we have these grand ideas and these great plans of what we want to do and what we want to achieve, and we never tell anybody.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
We just like hold it inside and you're like, I don't know, I'm not ready for it. Or I don't want to let everybody know if I don't make it. It's really embarrassing. And it's like, well, maybe, but at the same time, I find that, and this is something I've learned fairly recently in the last few years, that people want to help you.
Yeah.
Like, people want to help you.
Totally.
And they can't help you if they don't know what you want to do.
Oh, man.
And that could be filmmaking or not, but like if you want to, transition from wedding storytelling to commercial work, or if you want to direct a narrative piece, or if you want to, whatever that is, like talk to people about it. Tell them that's what you want to do. And you never know when a door is going to open up, or when somebody's going to be able to connect you with somebody else that they know that might be able to help you. And, it's one of those things where I think you just have to put yourself out there a little bit too, because in some ways that holds you accountable beyond just you having this in your head. Like now you've told people and you got to do it.
Yeah.
You got to do it. But people are going to help you if they know about it.
Well, I just think about your story from earlier when you and Ray were talking about doing this thing, and had you guys had one of you not thrown it out there, you wouldn't have done it, right?
Yeah. I mean, no question. And none of this, nothing that I've done, like I've been able to do on my own. Like it's all through, the help and generosity of other people and being able to collaborate and having a team that I can count on. And so, yeah, the two biggest things is like, be okay with being uncomfortable and not being
Yeah.
ready, and let people know what you want to do.
Yeah.
And, see where that goes. Just see where that goes. The worst thing can happen is you continue to do what you're doing, and that doesn't seem like the worst thing ever.
Right. Yeah. I love that. It's super good. I'm always encouraging people to be in a community, right? And part of that being in a community is not that you just like listen to everybody else talk and you're just kind of there, but you put stuff out there too. And it might be a dumb idea, but people that are for you, people that want the best for you, they might challenge your idea and they might push back on it and they might think that maybe it's kind of dumb, but let them press in and you push back and say like, well, here's why I think that I should be doing this. And let somebody else say like, you know what, actually, at first glance, I thought that was a really dumb idea because you do have this amazing job. You do have this security. But as you talk and as I see your eyes light up and you're leaning forward and getting excited, like, you can't not do this. You have to do this. I can't believe you haven't told me about this sooner. Like, I that happens in relationship and in community. And, I cannot stress enough, if you're in your little editing cave or, you're only, you want to be one person freelancer for the rest of your life because you're afraid what other people would think, coworkers would think of your ideas or anything like that. If you surround yourself with good people that are for you, like, let that be the thing that you strive for and try to do. And once you start doing that, inviting them into these crazy ideas that you have to see what people would have to say. And like Joyce is saying, some of them you'll do and a lot of them you won't, but nothing's going to happen if you hold it all in. If you think that you have the best ideas by yourself, you're crazy. As soon as you throw something out there for somebody to say like, yeah, that's a good idea. Have you ever thought about blah, blah, blah? And you're like, oh my gosh, they just took my idea and like made it even better. That's the kind of stuff that happens in relationship and in community. So love that you shared that.
Yeah, I mean, community and collaboration go hand in hand. And I think wherever it is you want to go, you're going to need people who are going to back you up in that goal and in that process. And collaboration is huge. I can't, stress it enough. Like whether you are like a solo freelance filmmaker or you're in a team, like try and work with new people in different genres or in different, industries even. Like if you're into documentary filmmaking, go work with a journalist. Like I bet you'll learn a ton from how they do the research to how they interviewed and like that process. And it's such a powerful thing, community. And it's great. I think everybody should make an effort to get out there. And this is coming from like hardcore introvert. Like I don't like, this is not what I like naturally am comfortable with. But again, it's like embracing that feeling of just putting yourself out there and seeing what happens.
Well, when I look at what you and Ray have created, you've got a team of people, you're kind of building that community. What's advice for those of us that maybe are that solopreneur and we just work by ourselves, but we'd love to have, another person or a couple other people? Like, how have you guys built something that, I mean, you're making money to be able to pay employees. You're in some way, shape, or form profitable, I'm assuming. What advice do you have for somebody to be able to do that?
Well, that's a big question. Hire people who are smarter than you and work with people, even if it's not a full-time, just like on a job, get a project and, that's pick a position. Like if you're directing, like hire somebody who can shoot better than you, or if you're hire somebody who's really good at producing and pay them for what, their experience brings. And maybe you don't make anything off of that part of it, but like the learning experience and the relationship that you can build from working with really qualified, well-connected people in the industry is massive. And, you never know, that may lead to more collaboration in the future or maybe permanent collaboration. But I think it's such a critical thing to build relationships And that goes for your team and the crew that you work with, whether that's a permanent crew or a freelance crew. And it also goes, it's the same thing with clients. Like, build that relationship, nurture it, make sure you know what they want, and do your darndest to deliver on that. And sometimes that means you have to put aside your ego, and you have to work on your communication and set the right expectations and make sure that that process goes as smoothly as possible. And I don't know, that's how we kind of started, and what we focus on in all the projects that we take on. And I really think the whole thing of it all, business, creative, whatever, it's all built on nurturing those relationships.
Well, what's next for you guys? I'd love to just, I mean, do you dream about the future a lot? Like, what do you guys hope for?
We talk about that all the time. And I don't know if there's like kind of one answer. And it's still always kind of a nebulous thing. I don't know, as a business owner, and as a creative, you're always kind of juggling what's responsible and what is profitable, and how can I put food on the table, while at the same time, how do I nurture my creative soul, and how do I grow as a filmmaker and as an artist? And so we this year have started dabbling a little bit into some original work that we're doing. So we've done a lot of stuff where it's commissioned by a brand or, commercial work, and that's great. Don't get me wrong. We're very lucky to have projects that, feed my soul in that world and put food on the table and allow me to have time to write and direct and produce our own stuff. And so we worked on a short film this past summer that's currently in post now, that I wrote and directed, which I'm very excited about. And we also just wrapped production on a feature-length documentary that is also in post at the moment. And so that's, so creating original content is kind of something that we're talking about and just kind of dabbling in at this point. And I think that's really exciting. It's kind of taking everything that we've learned and the relationships that we've built and the team that we have and pouring it into something that is ours. And I think that's really special to be able to have that, not just for me individually, but for us as a team and as a group to share together. And I don't know where that's going to go in 2019, but I'm up for trying it, see what happens. I've DP'd narrative shorts for different directors before. I've never directed one, never written one, but it's putting yourself out there. And I say this to people and I'm like, you know what? I got to do it. I can't just talk about it. I got to actually do it. And so on a long plane ride, got my laptop out and started writing, and 16 pages later, here we are.
Oh my gosh.
And it's great. And it's this kind of ties back into what I was talking about earlier with collaboration and building community. Like, when you put the effort and time to do your own personal work and do things that are meaningful to you, you get to work with whoever you want. And we don't always have that opportunity when you're working on a commercial job or an agency job, and you work within the parameters, and you can push the limits a little bit here and there, but there's still an end goal that the client is looking for, and you do your job to deliver on that. But when you're working on your own projects, sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want. And one of the things that I always want to do is work with my friends and work with more women. So when we did the short, I heard it was like more than 50% of the crew were women, and it was fantastic. I loved it. I loved that part of it, and I loved creating and just spending a week doing something that excites me.
That's awesome. I think that's one of my favorite things about you. You just got to try it. You just got to put yourself out there, take risks. That's really, really, really good. Super encouraging.
Yeah. Take risks, but then also, it goes both ways. Take calculated risks.
Yeah. Right.
Like thinking back to how we started, like, I don't know if I would have done it exactly the same way. I think quitting and going full time was the right move. Yeah. But at the same time, like, looking back now from like a business standpoint, it's like, I don't know if we should have dumped all our savings into buying a bunch of gear. Like, that just wasn't smart. But at the time, I'm not going to promote that decision on this show. Yeah. By the way, it wasn't smart. Like, go rent. There's so many great rental companies out there. Right. Shout out Lens Vertigo. Love those guys. But like, whether it's like taking a loan or renting instead of buying, or, having a business coach. There's so many things that if I think back now, I'm like, well, probably shouldn't have done that. But again, we'll make mistakes and we'll continue to, and that's just part of it.
Yep, totally. Yeah, the biggest mistake would be to not try any of that, and then that's the worst one. That's why I said that's the worst one. I'm talking in a circle here. A circle. But last question for you. I don't want to assume this, but only today. Where did that come from?
That came kind of like before my time. That actually, Ray kind of came up with that name. And truth be told, I don't love it.
Oh, wow. I'll tell Ray not to listen to this episode.
Right. Yeah. No. It's here's the story behind it. So what it stands for is just to make the most out of every day. That you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and
you're only given today.
You only have to have the joke around this is you only have today. Like, we got to do it now, or
it's perfect.
and just go for it. But I also, we remember sitting around the dining table talking about them. They're like, what do you think of his name? Only today, blah blah blah. And I kind of looked at it, and we kind of had this thought, and we were just like, you know what? The name doesn't really mean much until you give it meaning. Like, until you do work and create a brand that has meaning behind it, like, it's just a name.
Yeah.
Amazon, Apple, Oprah, whatever, like those names in and of itself doesn't mean anything until you have a product or service that or a brand that people recognize. And so I just kind of like, you know what, whatever, that's great. The domain name's open. Let's just get it, move on, and let's just work on building what this is instead of trying to spend 3 weeks on the perfect name. Not that we shouldn't be, thoughtful about what we call ourselves, but I didn't see the point in spending too much energy on that versus jumping into a business plan and actually working on what we were excited about.
I mean, the thing that's beautiful about it, it really is like you guys have emulated that, if cheesy or not, whatever, cliche, whatever, you guys really have embraced that. So I think you should both get matching tattoos if you don't already, and send us pics when you do. Okay.
Well, I'll think about that.
There's no thinking. You just got to do it. Like, take the risk, man.
All right. Fair. That's fair. You turn the tables back on me. I see where you're going with that.
Did? Yeah.
Do I have to do it today though? Because my schedule's kind of packed.
You have only till tomorrow. That's the next studio name. Only till tomorrow.
All right.
Joyce, this has been super fun. It's a huge honor to be able to catch up. I'm very, very excited for you guys and what you're doing. Keep doing it. Keep doing more of it. Keep sharing your stuff. Keep putting yourself out there. Keep taking risks, because guess what? You only got today. So
look at that. You got it. You got the message.
So thank you.
This has been really fun. Thank you so much for having me on. And, if anybody has any other questions, I'm happy to jump on Instagram or whatever. And
where can people find you?
And continue the conversation there at Joyce Tsang or at Only Today TV.
Awesome. All right, my friend. Appreciate it so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Don't forget, you can get all of the show notes from this interview with Joyce, the stuff that we talked about, if you go to studiosherpas.com/107, and you can click on links and all of the things. You can do that on that website page. Guess what it's time for? It's time for a podcast review, and this one comes from James Hedrick. Hey, Ryan, I'm in the Studio Sherpas course and have recently started listening to the podcast, which is incredible. Emphasis added by me, I think. But there is an exclamation point. He says, which is incredible. I should have exclaimed it more. Okay, I have it on pretty much anytime I'm in the car, and it's changing the way I look at our business in so many ways. Should have hopped on a long time ago, but I'm really thankful for y'all and all the content you've created for this community. You betcha, James Hedrick. Exclamation or punctuation, whatever, added by me. That's emphasis added by me. That's what I was trying to say. Thank you for taking the time out, James. If you would like to leave us a review, testimony, anything like that, you can do that on the iTunes page. If you just go to studiosherpas.com/iTunes, it'll take you to the iTunes store where you can do that. Just helps get the show more exposure, and then for when we have sponsors, it gets them to be like, oh wow, lots of you guys have some momentum here. So anyway, it's very, very helpful if you do that. We are getting ready to release a series of free trainings to help your business grow. You can sign up to be notified when that stuff releases. If you just go to studiosherpas.com/training, really, really excited about this next season for Studio Sherpas and for this community. We've helped a lot of people grow their video business, but what we've got planned is going to help a lot more people in a lot more ways. So stay tuned, dude. Next week is JP Bowles from Sandwich Video. You know, the True Car guy. Well, that's not actually JP. That's Adam, who he works with. But, they've done work for Wistia. If you saw the 110-100 series they recently released, which was really, really fun. We talk about that in the episode. JP is their creative director, and we had a blast together. You're going to love the episode. Here is a sneak peek of next week's show.
We have just been focused on making the best work we can from the very beginning. It's never been about like, oh, let's go after this brand and that brand. And it's always been, are we proud of this project? And can we take on this client and actually help them, move them into a better position, get them more recognized, and also at the same time make better work for ourselves and kind of be fulfilled in that way.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I am so grateful that you're here. I'm so grateful that we have a new year to make lots of new memories and do lots of awesome, impactful stuff. So thank you for being you, and thanks for being a part of this. Thank you for the encouragement that you give me. Let's keep doing this, huh? What do you say? So here's to a great week, and I'll see you guys next week. Adios.